Hello, in this lecture we're going to do a quick overview of Airbnb. Today, this is what Airbnb looks like. On the home page, you can find a short-term rental, whether it's a full unit or even a private room or a shared room, across 34,000 cities and 190 countries. And in fact, now Airbnb has these neighborhood guides as well, where they're using local photographers to really capture the essence of specific neighborhoods in cities, right? Because a lot of cities are pretty big and different neighborhoods have completely different look and feels, and there may be differences and nuances in the culture across the neighborhoods within the same city, and their hope is to capture that for you. Now, what we're interested in is how to list our place for hosting. So there's a button here that you can click, and the process starts pretty simple here. You got to pick your home type, you got to pick your room type, and what's the maximum that you can accommodate and put the city in. And once you do that, it goes through a longer process for you to fill in more information, for them to verify your identity and things like that. But it's relatively easy to do that. Now, before we get into the economics of listing and hosting a place and really looking at what are the important considerations and how to analyze that investment opportunity, in late 2007, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia quit their jobs to pursue their startup dreams. They had no idea what they wanted to work on, but as soon as they did that, they got a letter from their landlord that told them that the rent for their San Francisco loft was going up 25%. Now, desperate, they sat around and brainstormed for ideas to try to make some immediate cash. And they realized that just a couple weekends from then, there was going to be a huge designer convention in San Francisco, and that all the hotels were already booked out and that people couldn't get a place to stay. So Brian and Joe looked around their loft and they noticed something, that they had a lot of space in their loft. Well, it wasn't a lot, but there was some space. They had a couch, or they had enough space. But they thought, why don't we put an airbed in the extra space, offer some breakfast, and see if anybody would be interested in renting an airbed and breakfast from us. Breakfast was not that nice, apparently. It was more like Pop-Tarts. Then a few months later, Harvard grad Nathan Blejerczyk joined in early 2008 as their co-founder and CTO. And for the next 6 months, the three founders basically focused on trying to find airbed and breakfast hosts near high-profile conferences and events where they were booking out all the local hotels and there weren't enough. While that worked at the different events, they weren't able to achieve sustained revenues and sales from that. But all of that was done privately until August 2008, when they officially launched airbedandbreakfast.com. Now, just to give you an idea of how they got to where they are, in their first year, after the first year of operating basically through all of 2008, the founders collectively had raked up over $40,000 in credit card debt. They were basically running on fumes, broken, probably eating a lot of cereal for dinner, but their desperation and genius actually spawned this. Specialty cereal. Obama O's and Captain McCain cereal. And they sent these cereals to a lot of bloggers, and with the bloggers talking about it and getting excited about it, they actually ended up selling 800 boxes at $40 and ended up raising close to $30,000. That gave them a few more months of runway, which led them to a meeting with Paul Graham of Y Combinator. And for those of you who aren't aware, Y Combinator is one of the most well-known and famous startup accelerator programs, and there's many top startups that we know today that have gone through Y Combinator. So when they were meeting him, they had actually a presentation that was not very effective, and as they were leaving, Joe, one of the founders, had an extra box of cereals and decided to bring it out and told Paul about it, in which supposedly this is how Paul responded. Wow, you guys are like cockroaches. You just don't die. If you can convince people to pay $40 for a box of cereal, you can probably convince them to pay to sleep on each other's air mattresses. You guys are in. So the cereal was a critical component to getting them into the Y Combinator program. And what it did for them was it gave them $20,000 and a couple of months to really do some market research and exploring. And when they came back from all that, they were able to pitch investors and raise $600,000 only a few months later. And since then, Air Bed and Breakfast has become Airbnb and have raised many series of funding totaling $775 million. Most recently, $450 million in April of this year at a $10 billion valuation. Now they've grown a lot and they raised a lot of money, and they're being valued as a $10 billion company. But all of that is just the tip of the iceberg. Here's why. Airbnb did just over 6 million bookings in 2013. Estimated revenues at about 380 million. This is based on estimates of 190 million revenue on 3 million bookings in 2012. Assuming similar economics, they should be around 380 to 400 million in revenue. Now that was done across 550,000 properties worldwide. But the market potential for budget-conscious online trips, there are over 500 million trips booked online every year. So Airbnb is just capturing a little over 1% of this market right now. And in fact, if you look at trips worldwide that are booked, there's over 1.9 billion trips booked worldwide. And Airbnb has only captured 0.32% of the worldwide bookings as of 2013. So there's an incredible potential for growth. And the rest of this course, we want to show you how you can capture a small piece of that pie by hosting your own units on sites like Airbnb.